Welcome back. Hey, everybody. It's been a minute, hasn't it? It's a lazy, rainy day here in the Finger Lakes. Just sitting down, getting ready to record. I want to take a minute and thank everybody that has remained subscribed since I last recorded. If you're listening the first time, my name's John Sullivan, and this is the Bet Like No One's Watching podcast. It's always been a sports betting and DFS lifestyle podcast. I used to play DFS as Buffalo 66. Gave it up for good after the whole Max Delury thing and 888 entry fiasco and Ethan Gate, of course. Boy, that seems like such a long time ago. It's been a while. I mean, it's been, 7 years since 2015, but... to some people that hasn't been a long time. It seems like it's been a long time to me. So just sitting down here to record. This is my spot, my audio podcast I use for commenting on all things gambling Twitter and talking about my personal journey in this gaming lifestyle. Fair warning, sometimes I say not family-friendly words, so listener discretion advised if that's actually a term anybody uses. But sometimes I just get off on a tangent and may say adult words, so be wary of that. Also, let's just get into it. There's a lot to talk about here, so let me just take a sip and let's go. So from the last time I was with you guys, I want to talk about some of the personal things that happened to me. I don't usually talk about my personal life, and I try to avoid sharing any of it on social media, but I think it's important here to give some context. 2022 has been just a crazy year. On the evening before the Super Bowl, I was injured at my job, my part-time job. A chemical spill gave me third-degree burns on my left foot, which resulted in partial amputation of my foot, loss of my toes. It's been quite an experience. I'm not going to go into the blow-by-blow, but I was hospitalized for an extended period of time. Healing from burns is very slow. It's one of those things where no matter how the best doctors, the best facilities, they only can do so much, and then they say, hey, you have to wait and heal, and then we check on it, and then we go and do some more, and then you heal, and then we check on it. So I'm actually just finishing up. I'm out of the hospital, but I'm still receiving in-home physical therapy. I just finished my in-home nursing visits. I have to walk with a cane, and I just don't move very fast anymore. It's one of those things that, changes your life on the turn of a dime. And, it's something I don't think anybody expects to happen to them. And so now it's the new, slower, more deliberate me. I can still have my fiery temper every once in a while, but I've learned to just be a little more chill with my daily expectations. And, having a good day for me involves just getting some things on my list accomplished, as opposed to, people have their to-do list and they might have 5 or 6 things to do on their list. And if I get 1 or 2 of those things done, that's a good day for me. And that's just how it is now. I just have to plan on longer horizons. I still don't know how it's all going to end up, and the uncertainty is really killing me. And you wouldn't think that somebody who gambles would feel that way, because we embrace risk. We manage risk constantly. But sometimes... you feel helpless, and you're just waiting for things to resolve themselves. When there's less uncertainty about my future physically, I think I'll feel better. because the uncertainty kills you. It really just does. But it's one of those things where you have to, time is the only thing that's going to make the uncertainty go away. So that's where we're at. So let's take that, compartmentalize that, and move into the 2022 sports betting year. Haven't really done that great, to be honest with you. We're going to talk quite a bit about futures today. For the second year in a row this past NFL season, I had very heavy future positions on the Buffalo Bills and the Green Bay Packers. And 2 years ago, I had them, and I did not hedge, and that was painful. They both made the conference championships, and I ended up with nothing. And this year I said, well, if they get to the conference championship round, I will hedge. And then they both lost in the division round. And, of course, the Bills lost in that painful overtime game. And the Packers lost without giving up an offensive touchdown. They gave up a special teams to our defensive touchdown. And those were extremely frustrating games, but they were smart plays. They just didn't pan out. I also, in college football, I had futures on the playoffs. I had Alabama, Michigan, and Cincinnati. I had future positions on all three of those teams, and of course, it was anybody but Georgia. So I let it ride that way, and Georgia won. And again, I ended up with 0. And I just felt that my Michigan and Cincinnati didn't have any chance to win at all. But I didn't really have a way to hedge my position and keep it profitable. So I was kind of stuck there. And then moving on to college hoops, I actually went kind of crazy with the futures. I had a total of 55 futures tickets. There's about 360 Division I basketball teams. 40 of them made the NCAA tournament. People are probably thinking that I bet all the favorite teams, and that was exactly the opposite. I bet almost all long shots. My shortest position, odds-wise, was Villanova at 27-1, and I had North Carolina at 200-1, and they made the championship game. I did not have Duke. I did not have Kentucky. I did not have any of these big favorites. I had teams like Wyoming at 2,000-1, and some of them escape me. I save all my tickets, but long story short, I had North Carolina at 200-1. It's halftime, and they have a 15-point lead, and I'm like, what could go wrong? And I actually had a cash-out option for the first time. For those of you who are not familiar with New York betting, we didn't have mobile betting until the last year's Super Bowl-ish time. So this was the first year that I actually was able to wager online and have cash out options on my wagers. So I did not cash out. Nobody had ever come back from a 15-point deficit to win the championship, and of course Kansas did just that. So I had 3 straight futures markets where I had championship game implications, and ended up with 0 in my pocket. Did not help the start of the year. Before that, I did cash a future on the MLS, NYCFC. I got a pretty nice payday on that. And actually, I cashed out in League One. Serie A. I had a future on AC Milan, which I actually cashed out early on it because it was about 80% of the total payout, and I was just so worried about them choking, and it was nice to book a win. And I also had a future on Liverpool to win the English Premier League, and it looked like they might actually pull it off on the last day, but it was not to be, as Man City came back from a 2-0 deficit to win the league and put my Liverpool future up in flames. But that was a position where I just bet the one team, and I didn't really have a portfolio on the soccer. And that's pretty much been the case with my soccer futures. It's usually just one or two teams in a league. I actually, recording this today, Golden State won last night and reached the NBA Finals, and I've actually clinched my NBA future portfolio. I have Boston at 80-1. The Heat at 12-1, and Golden State at plus 700, and so all three teams remaining, I have a future on. So there's no need to hedge. There's no need to worry. One of those tickets is going to pay. So very excited about that, especially because the NBA playoffs have been absolute unwatchable. I'm not going to use a negative word, but it's just the games have been unwatchable. It's there have been one or two games where teams came back from double-digit deficits, and we'll have to see. I do have one ticket left in the NHL on the Rangers at 20-1. I had a chance to get Tampa Bay at 22-1, and I regret it so much when they were down 3-2 to the Leafs, because they look like the team to beat. But I'm a firm believer that the only two teams that have a shot at winning the Cup are the Rangers and Tampa Bay, because I don't think anybody else has good enough goaltending to go all the way. You could argue. I felt St. Louis had it with Binnington, and when he got hurt, I cashed out my St. Louis future. I'm surprised they've bounced back, but no disrespect to Ville Husso, who was a great regular season goaltender, but in the playoffs, it's a different style of hockey, and he's not much of a puck handler. You have to be not just a shot blocking goalie, but you have to be what I call a puck handling goalie or positional goalie, where you have to do things outside the crease that you don't have to do in the regular season. And Vasilevsky is clearly the best goalie in the world. Shesterkin is world class. I think they're very close, but I think Vasilevsky is in his prime. He's better. I think Shesterkin could be there someday, but I don't think Carolina has the goaltending to get it done. I don't think Colorado has the goaltending to get it done, and losing Girard is a big loss for them. If they lose another player, it's going to be great if Colorado plays Edmonton in the West Final. It's going to be the overs are going to be they're going to have to set the over-unders at 7.5. It's going to be awesome, but I don't think either of those teams has the goaltending to win it all. Anyway, it's very exciting. We have CFL is going to start in about 10 days. I'm very excited to get back to pro football, where matches are once a week, and you have all week to grind your spreadsheets and try to find your edges. And it's something that I'm looking forward to, and seeing all of my favorite Canadian teams play 3-down football, which I love so much. So I'm ready to get back into it. There's a lot of. I'll take a second to say before I move on that the USFL has been extremely disappointing. It's basically pickup football. They took guys off the street and trained them for 3 weeks and said, "Okay, let's go play football," and it is something that it is great to watch when there's nothing else on, but it's not bettable. It's not. There are hardly any edges to be found there. And as a matter of fact, to my knowledge, all of the New York online books have taken USFL off the board, so you can't even bet on it if you wanted to. Very disappointing. I know the XFL is supposed to come back next year. I don't know how that will all turn out, but I'm rooting for the CFL to get back on financial footing, because I really think it's the most entertaining football league in North America, and I look forward to it every year. All right, let's move on. So why am I talking about futures so much in this podcast? And this is, again, part of my gambling journey. In my opinion, futures are the easiest place to find value these days. I still grind bets daily, but I have decided to put more of my bankroll into championship futures than I do into my daily grind. And I know that some of you that listen to this are saying right now, futures tie up money too long, or they tie up, if you're on a credit book, they tie up your credit, and they have horrible hold percentages. And I agree that the hold is high if you are betting, multiple futures in the same market. However, I think there's, even though the hold is high, there's incredible value, and I'll give an example. But I think the books are lazy, and they price these markets soft, and they just use a high hold as cover. So last year in the Major League Baseball, I bought a 100-1 ticket on the San Francisco Giants to win the series when they were 11-2, and they were in first place in the West. And the books had so much liability on the Dodgers and on the Padres that they gladly offered this price. And it started. So I took it, and I took several other positions on. I had 125-1 on Mariners, and they missed the wild card by one game. So at the start of the postseason, my Giants ticket, the Giants ended up with 108 wins, and they were priced at plus 350 to win the World Series at the beginning of the playoffs. So in the divisional round, the Giants and the Dodgers were tied, and the Braves had a 2-1 lead over the Brewers. So I hedged with the Braves, and I also had a Red Sox ticket in the American League. So I ended up with two of the final four teams in baseball, and my Braves ticket cashed as they won the World Series. And if you added all my futures together, they all had the exact same payout, each ticket. So I ended up with the equivalent of a plus 450 portfolio on, if you combine all my futures, ended up being, the odds were overall were plus 450. So anyway, the point here is it's silly to me that someone would say that a $50 bet on a 100-1 ticket with a legitimate playoff contender is a bad bet because of the high hold percentage. It's really, really just taking advantage of bad bookmaking. As a matter of fact, if I go to what Rufus recently said on his podcast, he had some golfer. I don't bet golf, so I'm not going to say I know anything about it. But he had a golfer to win the PGA at 300-1, and he bought a ticket on it, and he said he had him priced at 210-1. So his model said he should be plus 210 or 210-1, and the book was selling it at 300-1. So he was taking advantage of bad bookmaking, just like I'm taking advantage of bad bookmaking. We're using different, methodology to get there, but it's the same thing. I don't want to get into a futures and hedging discussion right now, but I will say this year's baseball market I don't think is that great. I think because this year the good teams are really good and the bad ones are really bad. I actually have the most faith in the Rockies and the Diamondbacks to maybe sniff the playoffs. and both of them were available at least 500 to 1 or more during some point in April. I think the last time I checked, I think the Diamondbacks were 1,000 to 1 at one book. I'll talk more about futures and hedging in another podcast. I feel like there needs to be a discussion about hedging, especially after all this stuff with Rufus and his golf bets. There's layers to that discussion, but for somebody who's a rec grinder like myself, I'm not a professional bettor. I'm a rec grinder. I do it regularly, and I don't bet life-changing amounts of money. And it's something I just enjoy. It's a process I enjoy doing every day. It's like my Sudoku. But there is a time to hedge, and there is a reason to hedge, and you need to you need to figure out why you're betting in order to determine whether or not you're going to hedge. All right, let's move on to some of the recent going-ons in gambling Twitter. I want to talk about two things, one involving Spanky and one involving Rufus. First of all, Bet Bash 2 was held a little over a month ago, and most of the trip reports said that Spanky, it was great, and I even listened to Spanky's podcast to hear his own recap. Everybody seemed to have a really good time. As I always say, Spanky loves talking about Spanky. He says that he did Bet Bash 2 for the bettors and the better-bookie relationship. And, this is the main topic of today's podcast, and that's altruism. Doing something, claiming to do something for the good of the community as opposed to self-interest. And in my opinion, everything is fine until these public figures, they try to inject some moral authority into their schemes. And before we go any further, let me explain my point of view on Bet Bash. And I'm not slamming Bet Bash. If I would probably lived in Vegas, I probably would have thought about going. Some people think the event is well worth the $500 to spend time rubbing elbows with gamblers in Vegas. Of course, the networking appeals to me, but the rest of it kind of really doesn't. Even if I was healthy enough to go, I can't drink alcohol, and I don't need atmosphere models to enjoy the company of the opposite sex. I don't need a picture next to Roxy Roxborough to boost my social media cred. Not something I'm trying to do. That being said, this event is very popular among gambling Twitter. It's sold out. So think about it for a second. 500 people paid $500 each just for admission. They turned people away. So that's $250,000, $250,000 just for entrance fees, not including lodging or the panel speaking fees, which were similarly priced. So this was a networking event for sure, and everybody loved the networking, but ultimately it's a business venture. Sloan Sports Analytics Conference at MIT, that was great in the beginning too, but in the last few years it has been overrun by media personalities that know little to nothing about analytics. And that is, to be fair, Sloan is also $500 to get in, and I don't think it's worth that price. What I'm trying to say is at some point Bet Bash will no longer be the shiny new toy, just like Sloan used to be the shiny new toy. It won't be that exciting new thing to be a part of. So I'm going to circle back to Bet Bash and tie it together with what I'm talking about right now, which is Rufus's ventures with Unabated and Establish the Run. I think Rufus is slowly turning into the iconoclast that everybody thinks Alan Boston is. And I mean that as a compliment, really, not as a dig. Rufus is a very successful sports bettor, and he's co-host of Bet the Process with Jeff Ma. He's very smart, and I think he's very funny, and I think he loves what he does. I think one of the reasons he's so admired is that he just kind of does things in his own, he marches to his own beat. And that seems to be changing because he's declared that he wants to build things and he wants to work with other people in the community, and he's made some business decisions in the past year that seem to contradict these, qualities that made him admired. First, he launched the Unabated with Captain Jack, and their platform to use their premium features charges $99 a month. And he has also licensed his golf projections to Establish the Run, which is a DFS tout site. And Rufus says that he sees that selling his projections and picks are not the same. In my opinion, by spinning off the projections to Establish the Run, he tries to distance himself from culpability on this. Not a good look, I don't think. I will say, for 100% transparency, that I sold projections back in the dark ages. I was the first person to sell DFS projections, specifically for daily fantasy. And the modeling back then was very primitive, and I did it to get action. My true motive for offering projections was I would figure that somebody would want to see how I weighted my fantasy rosters. And I never really made any significant money at it, but I did have, I've never denied the fact that the reason I did it was to try to get people to play DFS so I could get more action. Why do I think that it's bad luck for Rufus to sell golf projections? Because it's hard to unring the bell. We know that Rufus doesn't need to sell picks. He doesn't need to do it. He makes good money betting. He enjoys his lifestyle at his current income levels. Yet he claimed in his podcast he desired a more communal working environment. And I just find it hard to believe that this is what he meant by that. He doesn't really add much to the community by selling access to projections. He's just selling work that he was already doing for himself by himself. And I'm not a big fan of the Unabated site. They are selling tools and access via Discord to help bettors, which is fine because they do not promise you a winning sports betting experience. They'd say tools to help the sports bettor, but they don't say tools that will make you a winning sports bettor. This is a very fine line that they are walking. Captain Jack claims, first of all, that they've taken no income from Unabated, which may be true. And he also makes it seem, just like Spanky, that they are doing it mostly for the benefit of the sports betting community. And this is where it all ties together. This is the problem. When you inject a whiff of altruism into these business ventures, it becomes highly, highly disingenuous. And that's what they are. They're business ventures. If it's not a cash grab today, it's a long-term hustle. None of these ventures are non-profits. Think about that for a second. If they were really altruistic, these would be non-profit. So they wouldn't have to pay any taxes on anything. They would register them as nonprofits. All of these people have a profit motive, and they all have an exit strategy to sell to large corporate interests. So this whole thing about doing it for the community and doing it for the better, it makes me kind of sick. It's people being fake while rationalizing being authentic. Come out and say that your business has a profit motive and you hope to cash in big one day. There's no shame in it. Think about if Spanky sold out Bet Bash at $500 a pop. So he's either going to try to make it bigger, more people at $500 a pop, or he's going to keep it at $500 and charge $750 a pop. And that he's going to keep raising the price and reaping in these rewards until there's diminishing returns. I mean, it's just common business practice. But for them to do these things and say, "Oh no, it's for the good of the community," is it's a crock of malarkey wrapped in a, I don't know, ambiguous sandwich. I'm trying not to say really bad words here, but these guys have to, somebody needs to ask them, do you plan to make money with Unabated? Do you plan to monetize it? Do you obviously, if you look at the business experience of the Action Network and Roto Grinders selling their businesses, they both sold to Better Collective, by the way. They both sold to the same company. But they sold their businesses for big bucks to affiliate company. So I'm not saying that Unabated and Bet Bash are going to be that way, but also look at Spanky's new odd. They're both Unabated and Spanky are working on odd screens to sell to bettors. And this is they talk about in the TV show Deadwood. They talk about how in the beginning they're selling you don't want to be the guy mining for gold. You want to be the guy selling the picks and the shovels. And this is what they're doing. This is exactly what they're doing. But they're putting on a facade of doing it for non-profit reasons. It's taking advantage of a market. It's taking advantage of a market, but you can be a businessman and just I'm here to make money, but you're telling the customer you're not here to make money. You're lying to the customer. It makes me very upset. Well, I think I'm going to end this podcast right here, a little worn out. Please look for another episode of Bet Like No One's Watching where you found this one, and look for the return of Sportsbook Confidential, my live video webcast this summer. I've been with fingerlakes1.com for the last 4.5 years. I'm grateful to work with those people. They're wonderful. They've been very good to me. And I'm going to go back live very soon. And I hope you check me out there. And thanks for listening to this podcast. And keep grinding. And we'll have much more to talk about this summer. Lots of topics going on. And glad to be back. Glad you're listening. And let's continue on this journey together. Take care, everybody. Have a good time. We'll see you again.